Welcome back to our channel, where we delve into the extraordinary stories of everyday people navigating through life's challenges. Today, I have a tale that's sure to grip your heart and leave you on the edge of your seat. It's a story of betrayal, resilience, and ultimately, triumph. In Exposed, my husband's shocking betrayal led to a miraculous comeback. The story of how I fought back will follow the journey of Madison, a woman who faced unimaginable hurdles in her marriage but refused to be defeated. So sit back, relax, and prepare to be inspired by Madison's unwavering courage and determination. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on another captivating story. Now, let's embark on this incredible journey together. Our daughter has passed away. In a somber voice, my mother conveyed this to my husband over the phone. What? Our daughter? You mean, Madison? Yes, my daughter. Your wife, Madison? She's gone. Even over the phone, I could tell that my husband was in a state of shock. My husband's actions towards me had been incredibly cruel. Now is the time for him to face the consequences. My name is Madison, a 35-year-old housewife. I was raised with my younger sister under the care of our father, who worked as a bus driver, and our stay-at-home mother. My father was always kind, and my mother had a gentle personality. So our family relationships were good. My responsible younger sister is still single and focused on her career. Jacob, my husband, and I met at work and fell in love. He was tall, handsome, and kind, making him quite popular among our colleagues. As a plain and timid person, it didn't take long for me to fall for him. When he approached me, according to him, he preferred someone with a good personality rather than someone glamorous. Soon after, we got married, and I became a housewife to support my husband. We were blessed with a daughter named Lily soon after. With the financial assistance from my parents, we were able to build a nice house. I should have been at the height of happiness. That is, until I discovered my husband's true nature. After our daughter was born, my husband's attitude gradually became more arrogant. First, he stopped calling me by my name. Hey! Whenever he had something to say, he would address me like this. After giving birth, I struggled to lose weight, and my husband started mocking me. Aren't you ashamed of having that kind of figure? You chubby old lady. Around this time, my husband started coming home late at night or early in the morning. I started noticing a scent of perfume on his suit. Since it became a daily occurrence, I finally confronted my husband about it. Taking care of a child is tough for me, too. Instead of going out drinking every day, could you spend more time with our child? Then my husband suddenly became angry and threw a chair at me. I don't drink because I like it. It's part of my job. Why don't you understand? You fat slob. You're the one who has an easy life, doing the same things every day at home. If you have complaints, go on at work. But you can't, can you? My husband shouted at me in a loud voice. After that, I became too afraid to say anything that would anger my husband. At the same time, our monthly living expenses were reduced to only $500. You're just a bored housewife, right? Figure out managing everything with this, okay? Naturally, I couldn't sustain our living with just that. So I started dipping into my savings from when I was single to make ends meet. My life was becoming more difficult day by day. However, when I thought about my younger daughter, I couldn't bring myself to leave the house. But the truth was that I couldn't ignore the pressing need for a solution. Utilizing my design skills from my previous job, I secretly started doing freelance work from home. Before I knew it, I was earning a salary comparable to my husband's. With the financial issues resolved, several years had passed without us divorcing. It was on a certain holiday when Lily turned 3 years old. My husband's phone started ringing while he was in the bath. Unusually, he had left it out on the desk. I ignored it at first, but it kept ringing persistently. So I quietly peeked and saw a woman's name on the screen. I realized that my husband had another woman. When my husband came out of the bath, I calmly told him, "Your phone was ringing." I could tell that my husband's expression changed. "Did you look at my phone?" "Huh? No, I didn't." I lied to my husband as naturally as possible. In response, my husband entered the bedroom with a disgruntled expression. Unconsciously, tears started streaming down my face. I thought to myself, I can't let it end like this. I started secretly recording conversations with my husband using an IC recorder during this time. Furthermore, I hired a private investigator and obtained solid evidence of his infidelity. When our daughter turned 5 years old, the decisive event finally happened. Even now, thinking about it terrifies me. There was an abnormal increase in days when my husband wouldn't come home. He would always claim it was due to business trips. But as someone who worked in the same company, I knew there were no such business trips in his department. What an insult. I had reached my limit with him. Going to see his affair partner even while lying with a lie that I could easily see through. During this time, I seriously contemplated divorce. That morning, my husband suddenly announced while coming down the stairs that he had to go on a business trip. Since there wouldn't be any decent meals at home, I might as well eat something good on my business trip. With his snide remark, I finally exploded with anger. "What did you say? What do you mean there won't be any decent meals? Stop joking. I make dinner every day, even though you rarely bother to eat it. And where do you go while claiming it's a business trip? I have the evidence that you..." The moment I said that, my husband flew into a rage. "Shut up. Stop saying unnecessary things." He said that and pushed me forcefully. My husband looked down at me, sprawled on the floor, and I easily left the house. I was surprised by the sudden turn of events as my head hit the floor. However, shortly after, my consciousness started fading little by little, and everything before me turned completely dark. When I regained awareness, I found myself on a hospital bed. My daughter and parents were looking at me with worried expressions. "Mommy, are you okay? Lily, did you help me, honey?" As I tried to hastily get up, pain shot through my entire body, according to my parents. Miraculously, the injuries were not severe, and they said I could be discharged the same day. Yeah, I called Daddy because Mommy got hurt. I told Daddy to come back, but Daddy said he couldn't because of work. So, I called Grandma. Taking over for our tearful daughter, my mother continued. So, I called the ambulance. I was really scared, you know. "What happened, Madison?" I asked the nurse to take my daughter outside the hospital room. Then I confided my parents about the countless cruel things I had endured from my husband. Both of them listened subtly, and then my father spoke. "I see. You don't have to endure anymore. Come back home. And we need to settle things with him properly." By revealing everything to my parents, I finally made up my mind to put an end to this marriage. Our family held a meeting right there and decided to launch a big act of litigation against my husband. The next day, my husband called my cell phone. My mother answered the call. "Our daughter has passed away." My mother delivered the news to my husband in a solemn voice. The phone was on speaker mode. Of course. I was also recording the conversation. "What? Our daughter, you mean Madison?" "Yes, my daughter. Your wife, Madison." She's gone. I could sense my husband's panic even through the phone. My mother continued to pile on him. It seems that she fell and hit her head hard on the floor. Do you have any idea what could have caused it? No. Then my husband, with a feigned voice of tears, said, she was as cheerful as usual this morning. Why did this happen? I suppressed the urge to scream. You're lying, bitch. Anyway, where are you? My mother interrogated my husband with anger. Well, you see, I'm currently on a business trip. It will take me half a day to get back home. Come back immediately, then. We're going home with our daughter now. My mother hung up the phone after saying that. We hurriedly made our way back home. At the same time, I quickly gathered the evidence of his past infidelity, including the voice recorder, and consulted with a lawyer. While I was at it, I checked our bank accounts and life insurance policies and confirmed that my husband hadn't made any changes yet. Preparing for a confrontation with my husband, I evacuated my daughter to my sister's house and waited for my husband's return with my parents. After a while, my husband arrived home. What? Who is she? Suddenly, I widened my eyes in disbelief. To my astonishment, my husband returned home accompanied by another woman. He, who had been informed of my death, was left speechless by the fact that I was still alive. Madison? You're alive? Why? More importantly, who is that person? What? You. You can't be serious. Did you deceive me? My husband's voice was filled with shock. Not as much as you did. So, who is that person? Weren't you all supposed to be at your family home? What are you talking about? This is my home, isn't it? Forget about that for now. Who is that person? No, it's not like that. This is someone from a business deal. Just as my husband started to explain, I laid out the evidence of his affair that I had obtained through a private investigator on the table. According to my investigation, this person seems to be a woman in these photos. What is this? They are probably fake photos or something. Fake, you say? Well, why don't you take a look at the dates on the photos? And this is what I wrote in my diary. My husband is on a business trip. When I called the company, they said he took paid leave. Who was deceiving whom? You have some nerves, ain't that? Then why is she here today? All of the haze. Well, there was a matter that needed attention. Just as my husband was about to respond, the woman interrupted. I'm Anna. I've been dating Jacob with the intention of getting married. Are you Jacob's older sister? What? His sister? I'm Jacob's wife. Surprised by my response, she spoke in a shocked voice. Wife? Jacob told me that he lives with his sister. What are you talking about? I'm his wife. As I responded with disbelief, my husband started to look frightened. However, even in this situation, my husband stumbled and attempted a feeble counterattack. Well, there's a reason for this. I'll explain later. I promise. It seemed like she understood the situation by now. Jacob, you told me that your sister has passed away, didn't you? What does it mean that you have a wife? She confronted my husband fiercely. I also immediately confronted my husband. For these past few years, you've been cheating on me behind my back. And you even pushed me and caused me injury. Huh? Jacob? Did you really do such a terrible thing to your wife? Unbelievable. So the same thing could happen to me too, right? Anna said with a half-exasperated expression. True. I love you. I really do. Love her? So that means you admit to cheating on me, right? I joined in the confrontation. No, it's just that. So this is what they call a chaotic situation. My husband panicked, but I remained calm. My parents were looking at my husband with even colder and more distant gazes. There was not a trace of love left for him within me. Divorce. Let's end this and go our separate ways. I'll also break up with him. Simultaneously, Anna and I discarded my husband on the spot. Just pushing me alone is already a serious crime. Furthermore, there is evidence of your infidelity. So be prepared for a huge amount of compensation. To think you were a married man. I truly despise you from the bottom of my heart. I also demand a suitable apology from you. So be prepared for that. Anna was also furious and directed her anger towards my husband. In response, my husband brazenly started making desperate excuses. It's not my fault that medicine fell on the floor. She tripped on her own. Do you have any evidence that I pushed her? Is there anything to prove it? In disbelief at my husband's attitude, I took out an IC recorder. It contained a vivid recording of a sound when he pushed me. In addition, all the past awful remarks he made towards me are perfectly recorded here. There's no escaping from it anymore. You idiot. Furthermore, Anna added, I have email evidence as well. It proves that we met at a matchmaking party. And that he referred to you as his sister. Unable to make any more excuses, my husband finally lost his temper. Shut up, you fat cow. If you were gone, I was planning to be with Anna using your life insurance. She is the daughter of an executive from a business partner. If we got married, my promotion was guaranteed. It's all your fault, Madison. My husband started throwing whatever was within reach at me and even attempted to grab me. At that moment, my father swiftly restrained him in a stranglehold. My father is skilled in judo. Then, with my husband immobilized, Anna delivered a double slap to his face. This one is for me, and this one is for Madison. Saying so, she ended with a powerful knee kick to his sensitive area. As he writhed in agony, I whispered quietly to him. Regarding the life insurance, my parents are beneficiaries, considering the worst-case scenario. Either way, he won't get any money from me. By the way, do you remember who the house is registered to? My parents put money into this house, so it's under their name. If you understand, then leave quickly, okay? Anna added fuel to the fire. So, you're dating me because I'm the daughter of an executive. It's a shame things didn't go as you planned. Goodbye. After a while, the divorce with my husband was finalized. I received all the compensation I could get. Instead of my ex-husband leaving, I ended up living with my parents. Subsequently, my husband's relationship with Anna became known at his company, and he was demoted. Naturally, her parents were furious, and they broke up as well. Furthermore, even at his new position, my ex-husband couldn't get along with colleagues and ended up resigning. Anna also demanded compensation, and his retirement funds were nearly depleted. Currently, my ex-husband is in the process of job hunting, unaware of all this. Anna and her parents discussed it, and she ended up apologized to me with a letter and even paid damages. Seeing Anna crying and apologizing to me, even though she wasn't at fault, I honestly felt sorry for her. By the way, she soon met someone through a matchmaking and got married to a genuinely single and sincere man. I was relieved to hear that she was able to marry successfully. As for me, my freelance design work from home was going well, and I succeeded in starting my own company. Initially, it was a small company with a few employees, but our performance steadily grew. Recently, the number of employees has increased significantly, and we plan to buy a building next year to expand the company. As for my daughter, she didn't feel lonely even after her father left. In fact, she strongly recognized him as a bad person who didn't come to help when mommy got hurt and never wanted to see him again. In our peaceful and harmonious days without fights, my daughter seems to be growing happily. The other day, filled with gratitude, I invited my parents and sister on a family trip. Not only we could relax at a leisurely resort, but we also found financial stability and peace of mind. I genuinely felt happy. "Hey mommy, I want a cat," my daughter said while eating a meal during our trip. "A cat? That sounds nice. Well, then let's go find a partner for you, Lily." "Oh, a cat. We love cats too. I wonder what kind of cat would be good." A few weeks after that conversation, a new member joined our family. It was a small and mischievous, adorable kitten. I can still hear my daughter's lively voice playing with the kitten today. After that, more good news followed as my sister got married. She finally met a kind and successful businessman. Moreover, she is expecting a baby. So our home will become even more lively from now on. May these happy days continue for as long as possible. Thank you for sticking with us through this intense and emotional story. If you found it as compelling as we did, make sure to leave a comment below and share your thoughts. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories. Hit the notification bell so you're the first to know when we release a new video. Until next time, take care and remember, sometimes, the truth is more terrifying than the... Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I'm thrilled to have you here for another captivating tale that will tug at your heartstrings and keep you on the edge of your seat. Today's story is one of love, betrayal, and the quest for self-discovery. It's titled Caught Cheating, Husband Hires Private Investigator, Shocking Footage Revealed. Get ready to experience a tale of trust shattered and the pursuit of truth as we uncover the secrets that threaten to tear a marriage apart. Tell something was up, but I didn't press. She said she was tired. So I went with it over the next few days. I started noticing that she was on her phone quite a bit, even around dinner time. I would ask, why is she texting a lot these days? And she would tell me that she was in a group chat, talking with her girlfriends about the girls' night out they had and planning another one. I didn't think much of it at the time. She was constantly texting her girlfriends. It was nothing new, but looking back now, I realized she was probably planning something with them that she didn't want me to know about. My wife works as a consultant for a big firm and would always come home stressed. So I didn't mind her having a night out with her girlfriends every so often. But now she is talking about another girls' night out. This will be the second girls' night out coming up in less than 3 weeks. The bad thing is, these women she hangs out with, 4 of them are all single. She is the only married one of the bunch, which in my opinion is not a good thing because it means she is the only one with something to lose. The other women are footloose and fancy-free. I don't want my wife to be a cheater, but I also don't want to control her or tell her what she can and cannot do. So, her second girls' night out came and went. I told her the next day that she needed to be careful and make sure her single friends didn't cause her to fuck up her marriage. She looked at me funny, but didn't say anything. After work one day, I stopped by my parents' house and talked to them about my frustration with my wife participating in these frequent girls' night out parties. I told my mom that the women she hangs out with are all single and none of them have anything to lose. My mom looked at me and said, "Well, I don't see anything wrong with a girls' night out, but I do see a problem with a girls' night out with only single women." My mom said she is playing with fire. Then my dad chimed in and said, "Yeah, if I were you, I would put my foot down and tell her that's enough." He also said the fact that she keeps going out to party without you is a major cause for concern. Then my mom jumped in again and said she did a girls' night out with her friends. 3 times in the 40 years my parents have been married, but my mom's girlfriends were all married. Mom said they were home by 11 p.m. They didn't stay out later than that. I thought about what they said on my way home and I decided they were right. I needed to nip this in the bud before it got out of hand. When I got home, I talked to my wife about it and she got angry saying I was being controlling and didn't trust her. I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to control her. I just wanted her to be careful because I loved her. She didn't want to hear it and went to bed angry. The next day she left for her girls' night out. She didn't even come home from work. This was her third girls' night out. I did not even know about this one. My wife didn't get home until after 2 in the morning. I didn't say anything. I just waited up for her. I pretended to be asleep. When she entered the bedroom, I decided I needed to find out what was going on and why she wanted to leave her family and party with her girlfriends on the way to work the next day. I called a friend of mine and asked him, did he still have the contact information for the private investigator he used for his company? A little backstory. My friend had an employee who was trying to get workman's comp for having an accident on the job. His employee was complaining after the accident that he couldn't come to work. So my friend promptly hired a private investigator. Turns out he wasn't injured at all. He was playing golf, played in a flag football league. Needless to say, he dropped the workman's comp claim. My friend gave me the number of the private investigator he used. He then asked me, was everything okay? I told him I wasn't sure. And I indicated that I think my wife is doing something she wasn't supposed to be doing. I said, she has been going out and doing these so-called girls' night out parties. My friend then asked me what made me think my wife was cheating. I told him about the 3 times she had gone out recently and stayed out until after midnight, coming home, smelling of alcohol. I also told him that when I confronted her about it, she got angry and defensive. He then said to me, well, it sounds like you have enough. I called the private investigator and set up an appointment to meet him after work. I met the private investigator and he asked me what I wanted him to do. I told him I wanted him to follow my wife and see what she was doing when she went out on her so-called girls' night out. The private investigator told me his fee was $100 per hour. And I said, I didn't care. I just wanted to know what my wife was doing. I gave the private investigator a picture of my wife. I told him what kind of car she drove, where she worked and what hours she worked. The private investigator told me he would start following my wife the next day. I waited impatiently for the private investigator to call me and tell me what my wife was doing. Finally, after 3 days, he called me. The private investigator told me to meet him after work. He had some footage to show me. He showed me footage of my wife leaving work in different clothes that day. On that day, she didn't leave for work in those clothes. She changed at work. He followed her to a bar. He went in and noticed she went to a table with a bunch of women, which were her girlfriends. They were there for about 2 hours. Then they all left. He followed them to a house about 15 minutes from the bar. He noticed a guy answered the door and they all went in. The private investigator was dressed in black. He tells me that at night, it helps him get closer for his surveillance. He walked up to a window at a slight distance and noticed all the girls were dancing, grinding on a few guys. And my wife was in the corner with some guy. He was squeezing her butt and she was kissing him. After that, he looked at me and told me, I think you have enough to do what you need to do. He handed me this flash drive and he told me he will keep a copy just as a precaution. After meeting with the private investigator, I went home and cried. I couldn't believe my wife of 9 years had cheated on me and she was still doing it. I wanted to confront her, but I didn't want to show her the footage. The next day I got up and left for work without saying anything to my wife. She sent me a text on the way to work, asking why I didn't say anything to her. When I left, I did not respond to the text. When I got to work, I made it a point to call a few divorce lawyers to see what I was dealing with and how I could protect myself. I also started looking for a place to stay because I knew there was no way I could stay in the house with my wife. I will miss the boys, but their mother did this. I was absolutely devastated. My whole world had been turned upside down and I didn't know how to fix it. The only solution was divorce. I wasn't going to try and fix our marriage. She wants this single life. She can have it. I had to be strategic because I didn't want the boys to be alone while their mother went out on her girls' night out. I live in Massachusetts, which is a no-fault state, that much I know. So divorce should be pretty easy. When I got home that night, my wife was home sitting on the couch with the boys. I walked in and she asked how my day was. And the boys smiled at me and said, "Hey Dad," I wanted to cry, but I had to hold it in. A few hours go by and everyone is winding down. My wife puts the boys to bed and comes downstairs and asks me if I want to watch a movie with her. I said, "No, I don't think so." She then said, "Okay, I'm going to bed." I waited until she was in bed to go upstairs and get my stuff and leave. I waited until she fell asleep before I left the house. I didn't have anywhere to go yet. So I went to my parents'. It was late. My dad was worried and asked me, was I okay? I told him I had something to show him. We sat down at the dining room table. I pulled up the footage that my private investigator compiled and showed my dad what the private investigator found. And my dad was in disbelief. My mom came downstairs and I showed her too. They were both speechless. I told them I was moving out and getting a divorce. They didn't say anything to try and stop me. I'm sure they were disappointed, but what could they say? My wife had cheated on me and I was done. I stayed at my parents' house that night. The next morning I got up, I sent my boss a text and told him that I would be coming in late. I was honest with him and he didn't have a problem with it. After talking to my boss, I noticed my wife had sent me hundreds of text messages, wondering where I was and why I left last night. I didn't respond to any of them. I found an attorney and filed for divorce based on the grounds of adultery. And I moved out of the house. I went back to the house when I knew my wife wouldn't be there. And I left a note on the kitchen counter. I told her that I had filed for divorce and that she could find me at my parents' house if she needed anything. After work, I drove to my parents' house and I saw my wife's car parked in the driveway. I went inside and I saw my wife sitting at the kitchen table crying. She asked me why I filed for divorce and I slowly pulled out my phone and showed her the footage and told her that I did not deserve this. I didn't deserve the way you were treating me. We sat and talked for a while and we both decided it would be best if we divorced. I told her I didn't want the house. We were renting it anyway, so she could have it. She makes enough money to pay for it. At the divorce hearing, it was amicable. The judge gave me 30 days to get the rest of my things. I didn't go after her for alimony. I made more than her and I didn't have to pay child support. She was getting that from the kid's father already. We are both the same age, 33, and the boys are 7 and 8. It was heartbreaking because I loved those boys like they were my own and I was their father in every way, but biologically. My job offered me a position out of state and I took it, changed my phone number. Only my parents and a few friends have my new number and started a new life. It's been almost a year now and I'm doing well. I've started dating again and I'm in a much better place emotionally. My friends have told me that my ex-wife was asking about me and she even tried to reach out to me on social media. But I have no desire to speak to her or see her again. I'm glad I made the decision to move on with my life. And I hope you can do the same if you're in a similar situation. Thanks for reading. I have never shared anything about my life on these forums, but this was heartbreaking for me. I still struggle at times, but one day at a time is how I am dealing with it. If you enjoyed this story, please show your support by hitting the like button. Your engagement means the world to me and helps keep the stories coming. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss out on future tales filled with unexpected twists and turns. Subscribing not only keeps you in the loop but also supports me in my quest to bring you more captivating stories. So, take a moment to like and subscribe. Thank you again for your support and stay tuned for more incredible journeys. Until next time, keep believing in the power of stories to transform and Hey there, storytellers! Welcome back to our channel, where we dive deep into the captivating tales that unfold in the intricate web of human relationships. Today, I have a story that will leave you on the edge of your seat, filled with betrayal, revenge, and unexpected twists. The title of today's tale is Caught My Husband Cheating on His Birthday. His reaction will shock you. Prepare yourselves for a roller coaster of emotions as we delve into the shocking events that unfolded when Wendy returned home early from a business trip, only to discover her husband's deceit. But before we dive into the story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest storytelling adventures. Now, let's jump right into the drama. I had returned home from business trip earlier than planned, and I had the all-too-natural idea of surprising my husband with my return and with a nice dinner. I hid myself in the living room closet, trying not to laugh out loud with excitement from seeing him all surprised and happy to see me, when the front door finally opened and I could hear his voice. But then, I also heard a woman's voice that I didn't recognize, and in a few moments, I saw them come into the living room together, arm in arm. My husband was with another woman, a stranger to me. At that moment, I realized that everything was a lie, and what was going to be a surprise became revenge. I was never going to forgive him, and he was going to pay well for his actions. How could he betray me, his own wife? Prepare yourself, darling, for what might be your last few seconds of precious life. My name is Wendy, and I'm a 32-year-old office woman. After graduating from college, I got a job at a major company that manages gardening equipment, and since then, I've been working hard as a career woman with a potentially bright future ahead of her. Up until about a year ago, I only cared about my working life and my personal success as a working member of society, but a year ago, I met Landon, my future husband. We met through a mutual friend, who invited the two of us to a small drinking party at a nice tavern downtown, and he worked in another smaller company. We hit it off, and after 17 months of being a couple, we got married, and we lived a happy life together as a working couple. My husband works for a small business in agricultural machines, and he never works overtime, and I don't work overtime either, and I also came home earlier than he did, so whenever I did, I would often wait for him after I cooked something for dinner. It was hard to do housework after work, but my husband worked hard in a physically demanding job, and my determination to cheer up with a meal was pretty impressive, so I didn't really mind doing the housework. As long as Landon could rest at home, nice and peaceful, when he was tired, that was good enough for me. A part of me also wanted him to think that I was a good wife for him, so, in my own way, I was doing my best at home too. Then, one day, it was decided that I was going to go on a long-term business trip. This business trip was related to an impending promotion of mine, and I was very excited. I even thought that this business trip would decide the fate of my career, if not my life itself. But during the trip, Landon would be alone in the house. He's a grown man who can take care of himself like it was a walk in the park, so there wasn't any need to worry. But one thing you should know about my husband, he is a catastrophically poor cook, and he's never done a day's housework in his life. Up until we got married, he was living in his parents' home, and everything was taken by my mother-in-law, Mrs. Braths. Landon can't even do his own laundry, but, nowadays, in this advanced society, we have delivery service for meals, and there's a laundromat a short walk away from where we lived for laundry. I was sure he could manage. And while I was on my business trip, my husband was going to celebrate his 34th birthday. We used to spend his birthday together, but because of this stupid business trip, we couldn't spend it together this time. Landon, honey, we won't be able to celebrate your birthday together this year. I'm so sorry. Oh, Wendy, darling, it's okay. It can't be helped in this case. You have work to do. But good luck with your work, darling. I've always loved you because you always try to do your best. We'll do something to celebrate it again when you come back. How's that? That idea sounds awesome. Thanks so much. And I'm really sorry. I'll do my best as always. With some kind words from my husband, I got even more determined to do great, and I headed out on my business trip. While I was away, I was very busy. Work often lasted until after I usually went home. This made it difficult for me to find enough time to call my husband or have a real-time conversation over text messages. I did call him every once in a while, and by that I mean a couple of days, but when I could reach him, perhaps he was busy at the moment because he never answered the phone. I couldn't get in touch with him other than messages, and it just wasn't the same. I missed him, but Landon had sent me off with his great words of encouragement, so I focused on working hard to land that big promotion. My hard work paid off in the end, because I finished a little bit early, and that meant that I could go home from my business trip a few days earlier than scheduled. I was so happy. I was able to come home on my husband's birthday, even though I told him I couldn't make it because of this business trip. I had the all-too-natural idea of surprising my husband with my return and with a nice dinner on the day of his birthday. The plan was that I would leave work early on his birthday and bring home Chinese food and a nice birthday cake for him and the wallet he wanted as a present. I had it all ready. I could only imagine how happy he would be to see me back home on his birthday. Just envisioning the look of surprise and excitement he would surely have on his face made me so eager to hurry up and get home. I arrived home long before he always did. That night would probably be the same as always. He would be home by 6 p.m. To surprise him, I hid in the living room closet. But even after 6 p.m., he still wasn't home. I wondered if it might be because he was celebrating his birthday with a bunch of his colleagues, and as I slowly began to be convinced that's what he was doing, I felt grateful for his friends. But I still wanted to see the look of surprise and excitement on Landon's face. So I didn't call it a night, even when it was after 6:30 p.m. I remained in the closet and waited for the familiar hum of his car. I was pretty tired from my long and tedious business trip where I spent an ungodly amount of time in front of papers and computer screens, and before I knew it, I was fast asleep. I only realized I was when I woke up a few hours later from the sound of a rumbling car engine. I opened the closet door slightly, and through the window, I saw the signal lights of the car scintillating. My husband had come home at last. I quietly closed the closet door and waited for him for another few minutes. I heard the front door open, and the familiar sound of Landon's business shoes echoed through the house. I had a good time today. Thank you for the delicious dinner. It was delicious, wasn't it? It was nice to spend your birthday with you, sweetie. Why in the goddamn world of ignorant bliss did I hear a woman's voice? One that I didn't recognize, in any case. And that sounded suspiciously young. I was so upset, but I tried not to make a sound in the closet. Seriously, I can't believe how happy a simple business trip could make me. I feel like every day I get to spend with you, Clara. I'm undoubtedly the happiest man in the world. It's actually insane how great I feel right now. Thank you, sweetie. I love spending time with you too. I can't help but feel sorry for your wife, but I always tell myself that it can't be helped. It's okay, darling. I'm only married to her for her money. You're the only woman I've ever loved. Am I really? Are you seriously only married to her because she's got bags of money stashed away? I know it'd be so hard for me when I discover my own loving husband says things like that about me. There's nothing good about her except for her money, literally the only thing she has going for her. And they got ridiculously excited as they piled on the bad things about me. I was shell-shocked, but unknowing of my presence in the room, they went on talking shit about me, laughing all the while. I always have an amazing time with you, Clara, but if I imagine that I only had a relationship with that hag, it's like suffocating me. It's a real nightmare. Then you're lucky I'm here. I'll say this again. I never loved Wendy. I love you so much, and I'm going to do what we can to be together, okay? Then they went to take a bath. I took advantage of the opportunity and left the house quietly. Maybe the better option would have been to interrogate the two slimy traitors right then and there, but the shock at what I'd witnessed was just too overwhelming. It was extremely difficult to prevent myself from hyperventilating and screaming in sorrow. I couldn't face the reality just yet. I needed time to gather my senses first. I booked a hotel room nearby and stayed there that night. As I was trudging towards the hotel, my emotions got the better of me, and I suddenly started to cry. I sat down on a bench in a small park, ripped open the box that contained Lana's birthday cake, forced my fingers around a large clump of dessert, and stuffed it in my mouth. The cream tasted very sweet, and somehow my tears, which were streaming into my mouth at this point, added a nice little tang at the beginning of each bite. From the point of view of passerbys, I was basically a woman dressed in office uniform, stuffing a ridiculous amount of birthday cake into my mouth, crying all the while, and getting cream in every nook and cranny of my face. I definitely looked a suspicious person, but during that time of personal crisis, what people thought of me was the least of my problems, and I couldn't care less. After crying a legitimate rainstorm, my sadness towards the situation gradually transformed into anger towards my husband. I don't mean to say that he owes me something, but no one can deny I've done so much for him. I cooked for him, did the housework for him, all because he couldn't do shit around the house, and when he told me there was something he wanted, I went and actually something nice for him. I got him a birthday present that cost thousands of dollars, and he was still willing to cast me aside as an ATM machine and never accept me as the one he chose to spend the rest of his life with. Call me a money grubber, will you? Well, that doesn't come for free, my dearest. I threw the wallet I'd bought for his birthday as hard as I could into a nearby trash can. You've got some nerve to cheat on your wife while she's away on a business trip, my dearest, I muttered to myself as I left the park. On the way to the hotel, I decided to get a divorce, but I knew he would only be pleased if I divorced my husband. I decided to really make him suffer for his crimes before divorcing him. For a while thereafter, I continued to stay at the hotel. I was supposed to go back home next week, so until then, I can't go home. But I did actually stop by my house on the way, and the fact that I found Landon's car was strange, very strange indeed. At this time of night, he's supposed to be at work still. I called his company posing as a client, and asked the receptionist at the other end of the phone, "Excuse me, is Mr. Landon Brass present at this hour?" "I'm sorry, ma'am, but it seems Mr. Brass has taken a vacation for about a week." "Oh, is that so? Thank you for telling me. So my husband is on vacation for a week. That led me to wonder if the woman whom he was having an affair with worked for the same company. I checked. Well then, is there someone by the name of Clara? I'm so sorry, ma'am, it seems Miss McIntyre is also on vacation for about a week. Is there anything you need to inform us about? If it's urgent, I can put someone else on the phone to assist you. No, it's not urgent. Thank you so much. Have a nice day, sir. After I said that, I hung up. I found out that my husband was having an affair with one of his coworkers. I was so sick of his stupid bullshit I wanted to throw up. I couldn't comprehend the fact that I used to love Landon Brass. Now, I feel nothing but contempt, disgust, and fury. I stayed out of the house for a while, checking on them both from a distance. After perhaps an hour or so, I saw them having inappropriate physical contact as they exited the house. They got into Landon's car and drove off somewhere. They were each carrying a large suitcase, so naturally, I assumed the two snakes were going on a trip, taking an entire week off from work just to go on a vacation of adultery. What a couple of carefree jellyfishes. I made sure my husband was out of the house completely before I went inside. I decided to take all of my valuables and all the things I needed and leave the house, never to return to live again. After I was sure I had packed everything, I made one last check of the house, which was in fact a kind of formal goodbye to the building. I loved that house. It was perfect for both of us to have a nice and peaceful time to rest after a hard day's work, and the backyard was absolutely beautiful. Landon and I were going to build a life together, and the first step was buying this house with most of what we'd saved up. It was not a new house by any means, but considering the fact that I was going to live in it with the person I loved, it was the best house I could have asked for. But now, I was living in it with a traitor, and I didn't feel comfortable at all. My biggest desire was to leave that house as quickly as I could, but my old love for this house made me linger for another few minutes. I took a walk around the inside. I discovered a lot of the woman's belongings, Clara's belongings. I became positive that while I was away on my business trip, they were indeed planning on living together in their cheesy, unfaithful excuse of passion. Assorted lotions, shampoos, conditioners, and items of makeup that weren't mine lined the nightstand in Landon's bedroom. His closet lodged her clothes, anything ranging from casual jeans and sweaters, to beautiful dresses, to inappropriately tiny blouses. The room had a fruity smell to it, and I later found out why. Landon's old bedsheets, which were now nowhere to be found, had been thrown away, probably, and replaced with new, orange-scented ones. When I saw all this, I was beyond angry. I was utterly mortified. I wondered what all the time we had spent meant exactly. Which had we been trying to build up the whole time? I left the house, and first went straight to a trusted lawyer, who helped me prepare for the divorce, and then I went to a detective agency to gather evidence against the affair. When I went to the house the second time, I probably should have taken pictures of the evidence, but I felt like if I took pictures with my phone, the scene would burn itself into my mind in the worst way possible, and I didn't like it. Additionally, I couldn't stay in the hotel forever, so I rented an apartment that could accommodate a tenant for a month at a time. That's where I put all the stuff I had packed and taken away with me when I left the house. I had to find a new, bigger, better place to live. By this time, I had already made up my mind on getting a divorce, and nothing was going to change my mind. I no longer had any love for Landon Brass, and he was dead to me, but something told me it wasn't enough. Of all the pain he had caused me, I have to pay him back with pain tenfold. Otherwise, my gut would never be satisfied, nor would it ever forgive me for backing out. As I went about my work as usual, I waited for a call from the detective agency, and I got a phone call from at what was quite possibly the best time ever. They said they had accumulated enough evidence, which was excellent news. I asked them to keep that evidence in a secure place while I went back to my husband's house. There was a car parked outside, so I knew he must have returned from his trip of adultery. After I confirmed he was inside the house, I headed to the cake shop and bought a cake before I went back to my husband's house. I unlocked the door, and I quietly entered the building. I made sure he was not in the living room, and then proceeded to approach his bedroom door. As I got ever closer, I could hear my husband and the woman known as Clara McIntyre, whom he was having an affair with, inside. I held up the box that contained the cake, opened it up quietly, took out the dessert, set the box aside in the corridor, and burst into the room. "Happy birthday to you! Happy birthday to you!" My voice startled them both, and their faces expressed the purest shock I'd ever seen. It was priceless, and I wanted to laugh, but keeping a straight face here and going through with the plan was key. Ignoring their ridiculous faces, I kept on singing. "Happy birthday, dear traitor, happy birthday to you." Once I finished singing, I threw the entire cake at my husband as hard and as accurately as I could. The dessert landed with a satisfying splat all over his naked upper body, and some of the cream flew into the naked woman as well. "Hey! What the frick are you doing, Wendy? What the frick am I doing? Well, look who's talking. And what do you think you're doing, eh? Well, I mean. Wait, I didn't know you were home already. Why the hell didn't you call me? Why didn't I call you? Listen, buddy, I'm about to clue you in on the truth here. I was already here on your birthday. I hope I didn't say anything more to help you understand. Oh my God, there's no way." My husband's mouth started to spasm, and his darling lover must have been more speechless than he. Her mouth gaped open, and gave me the impression she physically couldn't get it shut. "I think you just stole my frickin' line, Mr. Brass. There's no way I'm seeing any of this right now. Could you explain to what exactly it is you're doing?" "Well, this is, what does you know about this place, madam? This is my house, you know." Well. Perhaps my sudden intrusion really did the job to leave them catatonic. They were visibly upset, and they were not answering any of my questions. "I'm only a money grubber, after all, and this lady is the only one you love, right? Well, I have just the remedy for that. From now on, you will pay me back all the money that you stole from me. I'm going to demand alimony from you, and you better pay me back every single penny you owe me." No sooner had I uttered the word alimony than my husband gasped, and then I looked at the woman whom he was having an affair with. She was shaking. "Well, don't just stay there where you are, in that uncomfortable position. Get down on the floor, on your knees. I'm sure you'll feel a lot better that way." The moment I told her so, they both rushed off the bed, kneeled before me, and bowed their heads towards the floor. "I'm sorry, I was having a little bit of fun with her. Since you were away working, I missed you, and the loneliness was getting to me. Yes, that's all true. I have a husband myself, but he never pays any attention to me, and I was in desperate need of someone who appreciated my company." "Exactly, and we were actually talking about ending things right when you barged in, Wendy. We were just saying goodbye to each other." "Yes, we were. We both agreed it wasn't good for the ones we chose to marry originally. We literally just broke up, Wendy. Cheaters, liars, backstabbing traitors. I'm pretty sure all of these things describe the same two people. Let's see who can guess the right answer. I heard you two outside earlier, loud and clear." "Bullshit, you were talking about ending things. What you were really talking about was taking a 2-week trip to Japan next. You've got to be kidding me. How do two people stoop to such low humanity, damn it?" That's what I said, and both he and the woman went deathly pale, indicating I hit the nail on the head. "You guys are such assholes. I already mentioned I heard you guys talking shit about me the night of this bastard's birthday. With me having this much knowledge about what you think about my frickin' existence, you really think I'm gonna whatever horseshit excuse your bird brains come up with? I'm sorry. I admit that I cheated on you, and I deeply apologize. I hope you can forgive me. Just because you act all responsible and innocent right now, doesn't mean you're any closer to being forgiven. I'm sorry, I really am. I really do believe that what I did was wrong. Divorce me. Now. Please, please don't say such things, Wendy. Really, it was just for fun. Ma'am, on behalf of Landon, I'm begging you, don't divorce him. Please. The name's Clara, right? Who are you to talk to on behalf of Landon Brass? Don't you dare forget that you're eligible for paying me alimony too, eh? But, I was just having an affair. It's not like we were married, Landon and I. I don't think the law states that you can demand alimony from me because it was just fun and games. I don't believe this. Tell me what exactly is your IQ score? I'm just dying to know. Of course I can legally demand alimony from you. You knew the man whom you were with was married to another woman, and yet you went on with the affair, hoping to get something nice out of it. Newsflash, lady. Nothing nice comes out of unfaithfulness. I was so stunned that this woman was pretty much claiming that the Sun was basically the world's largest pizza in the entire state of Mexico. I couldn't believe I'd lost my actual husband to a woman with zero common sense. I want a divorce. I've already hired a lawyer, so if you want to know more about the demands, you'll hear about it from him. I've also been to the detective agency, and they acquired a lot of solid evidence of your stupid affair. If you're thinking of uttering excuses to get yourself out of this, don't freaking bother. It doesn't make any sense, for one thing. And second, you'd be digging your own grave. You can't be serious. I don't want a divorce. I don't want a divorce. You even said you didn't want to talk to me. Being around me was enough to get you disgusted enough to want to run the frick away from this place. I don't know how you expect us to live with ourselves as a married couple, now that the relationship is ruined. Oh wait, of course. I'm the money grubber, so you literally need me in order to survive, right? No, that's not it. Oh darling, it's a shame. Because this year, I actually got you that luxury brand wallet you've been wanting for quite some time. I had it. Ready for you. And I was gonna give it to you. Now, it's in the trash. No, there's no way maybe you should have stayed true to yourself. Goodbye. That's all I had to say, and I left them with their grief and shame, alone in the house. Thereafter, Mr. Brass tried calling me a few times, but I ignored them all. I left everything to my lawyer. Mr. Brass was later fired from his job, perhaps the fact that I went to the company where he and the woman whom he was having an affair with worked, and gave them an official letter from the detective agency that contained the evidence of their adultery. Nowadays, it isn't uncommon anymore to hear about people that cheated on their husbands or wives, and it's pretty much common knowledge right now that anyone who does engage in such crimes against humanity will lose credibility in the company, and in life in general. How in the world did Mr. Brass and Miss McIntyre not know anything about that? Mr. Brass was so dependent on me for living expenses, so I wouldn't be surprised if he never saved a penny. Now that he was fired, he pleaded to me through my lawyer to let him pay the alimony and monthly installments. I agreed, as long as he paid me in full. As for Miss McIntyre, she was fired from her job and was left without any money. Mr. McIntyre found out about the affair. I believe he's also demanding alimony. She tried to turn to Mr. Brass for help, but found no luck with him as he didn't have any savings whatsoever and was now working part-time. She decided she couldn't rely on him, and thus she betrayed him and replaced him with a man who seemed to be loaded with money. But that man turned out to be quite formidable because he didn't even work, and even though he's neck deep in debt, he never failed to waste his money on stupid things like gambling and marijuana. Knowing that neither Mr. Brass nor Miss McIntyre are living happy lives after their affair was exposed makes me feel somewhat relieved. The irony is that now I know full well it's not good to take pleasure in other people's unhappiness. I got a big promotion after that long business trip I took, and I was praised as the first woman in the company's history to be promoted to that position at such a young age, 32. There are junior staff who admire me because of this achievement and makes me subconsciously put more time and effort into my work. It's a very good thing I love my work, and now I've set myself a new challenge. To be a good boss who sets a good example for my subordinates, to be a trusted employee of the company and contribute to bringing it to greatness, and to acquire what is needed to be promoted even further up in the ranks of the enterprise. Wish me luck, everyone! Thank you for sticking with us through this intense and emotional story. If you found it as compelling as we did, make sure to leave a comment below and share your thoughts. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories. Hit the notification bell so you're the first to know when we release a new video. Until next time, take care and remember, sometimes, the truth is more terrifying than the lie. Welcome back to the channel, where we dive into the most jaw-dropping tales of betrayal and payback. Today's story is one that will leave you on the edge of your seat. Imagine discovering that the two people you trust the most are hiding the darkest secret from you. What would you do? How far would you go to get even? Our story today is titled, "Found Out My Best Friend and Boyfriend Were Having an Affair, Here's How I Got My Revenge." Let's get right into it. I never thought I'd be the girl to say this, but here I am, heart shattered, trust broken. It's funny, isn't it? How one moment can turn your entire world upside down. That moment for me? Finding those videos. God, even thinking about it makes my stomach twist. I was at Lara's, my supposed best friend since forever, celebrating her brother's 22nd birthday. The house was buzzing with people, laughter echoing off the walls, drinks flowing like there was no tomorrow. And me? I was floating through it all, tipsy and carefree, until I wasn't. Laura had disappeared outside, mingling or whatever, and I decided it was selfie time. Her phone was lying around, and we always shared everything, so I didn't even hesitate. A few goofy shots later, I had this brilliant idea to send them to myself, for memories. That's when everything changed. Typing in my name, I paused. Ethan's name popped up just below mine. Why? Why would my boyfriend and my best friend be texting? Curiosity morphed into suspicion, morphed into action. I clicked on his name, my heart racing, and that's when I saw them. For videos, thumbnails glaring back at me with a story I wasn't prepared to read. The first video was enough to burn every memory of us to ashes. Ethan, blindfolded, and Laura, very much not, in a way that screamed betrayal. They were intimate, to put it mildly. Each video escalated, their actions a stark contrast to the love and trust one thought we shared. I felt like I was outside my body, watching someone else's life implode. The room spun, my heart pounded, and I had to get out. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I left the party without a word to anyone, especially not Laura. Ethan's been calling, voicemails piling up with him crying, begging for a chance to explain. But what's there to explain? The videos spoke volumes, volumes of lies and deceit. And Laura? She's been radio silent. Guilt, maybe? Or just indifference? Hard to tell with a backstabber. Now, I'm here, sitting in my room, replaying that night over and over. The betrayal by the two people I trusted most has left me reeling, unsure of how to move forward or if I even want to confront them. Part of me wants to scream, to make them feel a fraction of this pain, but another part wonders if silence is the best revenge. What do you do when your world crumbles? When the two people you loved and trusted the most leave you questioning everything? I guess I'm about to find out. The night was supposed to be simple. Can you give Laura a ride home? I asked Ethan, my voice muffled by the phone and the sounds of the bustling cafe where I worked. It was just a favor, nothing more. Ethan, always the charmer, agreed without a second thought. Of course, babe, no problem at all, he assured me, his voice a smooth balm to my frazzled nerves. Little did I know, that ride would mark the beginning of the end. I was pulling an all-nighter at the cafe, the kind of shift that leaves you questioning your life choices. Meanwhile, Laura was out, living it up at a graduation party. She'd been my rock since we were kids, but that night, she became something else entirely. When I finally got a break, my phone lit up with a message from Ethan. Lara's home safe. Heading back to our place now. Relief washed over me, quickly followed by exhaustion. I trusted Ethan implicitly, and Laura was like the sister I never had. It never crossed my mind to doubt either of them. But then, things started to shift. Lara's texts became more frequent, her questions about Ethan more pointed. How's Ethan doing? He's such a sweetheart for giving me a ride. Her words, innocent on the surface, began to carry a weight that I couldn't shake off. And Ethan? He just laughed it off, his usual easygoing self, oblivious to the storm brewing on the horizon. The first seeds of doubt were planted the next time we all hung out together. Laura, who was always more jeans and a t-shirt than anything else, showed up in a dress that left little to the imagination. She clung to Ethan's every word, laughing a little too loudly at his jokes, her eyes lingering on him a little too long. It was subtle, but undeniable. Something had shifted in the dynamics of our trio, and I found myself on the outside looking in. I tried to brush it off, to convince myself that I was reading too much into it. After all, they were just being friendly, right? But the nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach wouldn't go away. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion. You know what's coming, but you're powerless to stop it. Ethan? I found myself asking one night, the word slipping out before I could think better of it, is everything okay with you and Laura? His response was immediate, a perfect blend of confusion and concern. Of course, babe, why wouldn't it be? He pulled me close, his embrace meant to reassure, but the seeds of doubt had already taken root, growing with every passing day. As I lay in his arms that night, the silence between us spoke volumes. The affair might not have been out in the open yet, but the foundation of trust we'd built was starting to crumble. And with each passing moment, I felt myself slipping further away from the two people I loved most, caught in a web of betrayal that I never saw coming. The moment I thought about confronting them, my heart raced like it was trying to beat its way out of my chest. The idea alone felt like stepping off a cliff. Ethan and Laura, the two pillars of my world, suddenly seemed like strangers. Am I just being paranoid? I whispered to the empty room, half hoping for an answer that never came. Ethan's behavior didn't help, if anything, it only tangled my thoughts further. He was the same loving, attentive boyfriend he'd always been, maybe even more so. Flowers, just because. Surprise dinners, his warmth enveloping me in a way that almost made me forget the storm clouds gathering in my mind. Everything okay, Mia? His voice, laced with genuine concern, would pull me back from the edge every time I neared it. You've seemed a bit off lately. How could I tell him what was swirling in my head? That every laugh shared with Laura felt like a knife twisting in my back? And Laura, God, Laura. She crossed lines I didn't even know we had, her questions about Ethan veering from curious to invasive. How did Ethan react to that story you told him? He's got such a great laugh. Comments that once would have seemed innocuous now felt loaded, each one chipping away at my resolve. Their closeness was no longer a figment of my imagination. The way she sought him out, the energy between them, it was palpable, undeniable. Yet every time I steeled myself to confront them, to demand answers, I'd falter. Fear of shattering the fragile peace held me back, the peace that, deep down, I knew was already fractured. The tension became a constant companion, whispering doubts in my ear, painting my thoughts with suspicion. Mia, you're just overthinking things, I'd tell myself, trying to brush away the unease that clung to me like a second skin. But the harder I tried to ignore it, the louder it became. One evening, as I watched Ethan and Laura laughing together over something trivial, something inside me snapped. The laughter wasn't for me. I was on the outside looking in on a connection that had somehow shifted away from our trio, excluding me, isolating me. I needed to talk to someone, anyone who could offer perspective without the emotional turmoil clouding my judgment. My mom, always my sounding board, answered on the first ring. "Honey, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice a soothing balm. Pouring out my fears and observations felt like releasing a valve, the pressure within easing slightly as I spoke. "Mia, listen to me," she said, her tone firm yet gentle. "Trust your gut. But remember, accusations need solid ground. Observe, reflect, and then act. Don't let fear make decisions for you." Her words, wise as always, gave me pause. Was I ready to face the potential truth, or was the comfort of ignorance easier to bear? The answer, much like my heart at that moment, was fragmented. As days turned into weeks, the dance continued. Ethan's affection became my anchor, Lara's boldness the storm that threatened to pull me under. The confrontation loomed large, an inevitable crossroads I wasn't sure I had the strength to face. Yet, in the silence of the night, with only my thoughts for company, I realized something had to give. The truth, no matter how painful, was better than the limbo of doubt. I resolved to find my moment, to confront the storm head-on. Little did I know, the eye of that storm was closer than I ever imagined. The air was thick with celebration. Laughter weaving through the crowded backyard as I navigated my way through familiar faces, all gathered for Lara's brother's birthday bash. It was one of those nights where everything felt just right, or so I thought. Little did I know, my world was about to come crashing down in the most unexpected way. I remember feeling light, almost giddy, as I made my way inside Lara's house to escape the chill. The warmth of the interior hit me, a welcome embrace from the crisp night air. That's when I spotted Lara's phone, casually left on the kitchen counter among a clutter of party debris. A harmless idea struck me: why not take a few drunken selfies for laughs? We did it all the time, a silly tradition that never seemed to grow old. Flicking through the camera roll to find my latest series of goofy faces, I noticed the messaging app open in the background. An innocent glance turned into a curious peek, and that's when I saw Ethan's name, popping up in a way it had no right to. My heartbeat accelerated, a mix of confusion and a creeping dread taking hold as I tapped on his name, driven by a force I couldn't resist. The screen loaded, and suddenly, I wasn't in Lara's kitchen anymore. I was somewhere far off, a place where trust and love went to die. Videos, 4 of them, each a knife twisting deeper into my heart. My fingers trembled as I pressed play, each second unraveling the life I thought I knew. The first video was a blow I couldn't have prepared for. Ethan, my Ethan, with Laura in a way he was only supposed to be with me. Blindfolded, vulnerable, and completely unaware I would ever witness this. Their laughter, touches, the intimacy of their betrayal, it was all there, laid bare for my disbelieving eyes. I watched, frozen, as each video descended further into a nightmare. There they were, the two people I trusted most in the world, sharing moments meant for us, for me and Ethan. The realization hit me like a physical force, tears blurring my vision as the final video ended. The room spun around me, the sounds of the party outside a distant, mocking echo. I felt sick, heartbroken, and utterly betrayed. How? Why? Questions spiraled through my mind, but deep down, I knew the answers wouldn't change the raw, aching wound inside. I left the phone where it lay, a Pandora's box of shattered illusions. The urge to confront them, to scream and demand explanations, surged within me. Yet, my feet carried me away, out of Lara's house, away from the scene of my world's quiet collapse. The night air no longer felt crisp, it was cold, a chill that matched the sudden ice in my veins. As I walked, the images played on a loop in my mind, a cruel highlight reel of betrayal. Ethan's and Lara's laughter echoed in my ears, a soundtrack to the unraveling of my trust. I knew then, nothing would ever be the same. The unexpected twist in my story wasn't just a revelation, it was a turning point, a moment that redefined everything I thought I knew about love, friendship, and trust. The moment I stepped out of Lara's house, the cool night air felt like a slap to my face, a harsh contrast to the storm of emotions raging inside me. My phone buzzed incessantly, a relentless reminder of the reality I was desperately trying to escape. It was Ethan, of course. His name lit up my screen over and over, each call a stab of betrayal. I didn't need to hear his voice to know what he would say. The apologies, the explanations, the desperate pleas for understanding, they were all meaningless. How could words undo what I had seen? How could they stitch back together the trust that had been so carelessly ripped apart? I took a deep breath, the decision crystallizing in my mind with a cold, hard finality. Blocking them was almost cathartic, each button press a step towards severing the ties that bound me to the pain. Ethan, Lara, they were parts of my life that I needed to cut out, malignant growths that had hidden their toxicity until now. The walk home was a blur, my thoughts a tangled mess of anger, disbelief, and an overwhelming sense of loss. By the time I reached my apartment, my phone was flooded with voicemails from Ethan. Part of me, a very small part, wanted to listen, to let his words wash over me in a wave of self-torture. But I resisted, there was nothing he could say that would change the images burned into my memory. Ethan again, I muttered to myself, deleting another voicemail unheard. His desperation was palpable, even through the digital distance I had put between us. Mia, please, just let me explain. It's not what it looks like. I swear to you, I didn't know she was filming. Please, babe, we need to talk about this. His words, even unheard, were like echoes in my mind. Could it be true? Did it even matter? The betrayal wasn't just in the act caught on camera, it was in the lies, the secrecy, and the fact that it happened at all. The apartment felt empty, colder somehow, as if the shadows held whispers of the love and trust that had once filled its corners. I sank onto the couch, the silence oppressive, the solitude a stark reminder of the gaping hole Ethan and Lara's actions had torn in my life. In that moment, the urge to confront Ethan, to scream and cry and make him understand the depth of the pain he had caused, was overwhelming. But what would it achieve? The damage was done, the trust shattered beyond repair. No, this was a wound that words could not heal. The night dragged on, each tick of the clock a reminder of the agonizing limbo I found myself in. To confront or to retreat, to seek answers or to accept the painful truth without them. These were questions I couldn't answer, not yet. For now, the only thing I could do was navigate the immediate aftermath of the betrayal, one agonizing step at a time. As dawn crept through the curtains, casting a soft light on the remnants of a life I thought I knew, I realized that this was just the beginning. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with pain and the daunting task of rebuilding myself from the ashes of my shattered trust. But it was a road I would have to walk, one way or another. The second the idea took root, it was like a wildfire in my veins, consuming the remnants of the hurt and betrayal with a fierce, unyielding intensity. I wasn't going to let them get away with it, not without facing the consequences of their actions. Direct confrontation? No. That would be too easy, too quick. They deserved more. They deserved to feel a fraction of the pain they'd inflicted on me. I spent the night plotting, my mind racing with possibilities until it clicked, the perfect form of revenge. Exposing them, letting everyone see them for who they really were, felt like the only way to strip them of the facade they'd so carefully constructed. The videos were damning evidence, impossible to deny or explain away. I worked methodically, my actions fueled by a cold, detached resolve. Creating anonymous email accounts felt like donning a mask, a necessary shield to hide behind as I prepared to unleash the storm. The videos, once a source of unimaginable pain, were now my weapons, and I wielded them with a precision that surprised even myself. The emails were crafted with care, each word a calculated strike meant to maximize the impact. To Ethan's family, to Lara's, to our friends who'd unknowingly been complicit in their secret, no one was spared. The send button was pressed not once, but several times, each click a step towards my liberation from the agony they'd cause. I imagined the fallout, the shock and horror that would ripple through our circle as the truth came to light. There would be no place for them to hide, no shadows deep enough to conceal the depth of their betrayal. Ethan and Lara, exposed for all to see, their perfect images shattered beyond repair. As the reality of what I'd done began to sink in, a twisted satisfaction took hold. It wasn't joy, far from it, but it was a start, a small flicker of power in the vast darkness they'd left me in. I waited, the silence of the early hours a stark contrast to the chaos I knew was unfolding in the digital realm. My phone remained silent, a testament to the anonymity of my revenge. Yet, I could almost hear the whispers, the shocked gasps, and the inevitable fallout. Ethan and Lara, once inseparable, would now be united in disgrace, their betrayal laid bare for all to see. This wasn't forgiveness, nor was it a path to healing. But in that moment, it was enough. Enough to give me a sense of control, a brief respite from the crushing weight of my shattered trust. As dawn broke, casting a soft light on the remnants of my old life, I knew that nothing would ever be the same. But maybe, just maybe, I could start to rebuild, piece by fragile piece, in the aftermath of the storm I'd unleashed. The silence of the morning after was deafening, each tick of the clock a heavy, echoing reminder of the storm I had unleashed. The night before, my fingers had danced across my phone with a single-minded purpose, sending those videos into the digital ether. It was a calculated move, cold and precise, aimed at exposing the betrayal that had torn my world apart. Now, as dawn broke, the reality of what I had done began to settle in, heavy and inescapable. My phone buzzed relentlessly, a constant barrage of messages and notifications. The digital world was ablaze with the scandal I had ignited. Ethan and Lara, once pillars of my life, were now the epicenter of a social earthquake, their reputations crumbling under the weight of their actions. I had envisioned this moment, played it over in my mind as a scene of triumphant justice. But as I scrolled through the messages, the expected surge of satisfaction eluded me. Instead, a hollow emptiness gnawed at my insides, a realization that no amount of revenge could undo the pain or fill the void left by their betrayal. The opportunity for confrontation came unexpectedly, at a gathering of mutual friends. The room was thick with tension, whispers darting through the air like arrows, each glance heavy with unspoken words. Ethan and Lara stood together, isolated, their eyes searching the room until they found mine. The moment was charged, a crackling anticipation of the inevitable clash. Ethan stepped forward, his face a mask of regret. "Mia, please, can we talk?" His voice was low, tinged with the desperation that might have once moved me. Laura stood by his side, her eyes downcast, a silent plea hanging between us. The words I had rehearsed for so long suddenly felt hollow. "There's nothing left to say," I responded, my voice steady but devoid of warmth. "You both made your choices, and now you have to live with them." The finality in my tone left no room for arguments or excuses. Turning my back on them, I walked away, leaving their apologies unacknowledged. It was a moment of closure, but not the kind I had imagined. There was no sense of victory, no triumphant exit. Just a deep, aching sadness for what had been lost. In the days that followed, the fallout from the public exposure was impossible to ignore. Ethan's friendships deteriorated, his social circle shrinking as the reality of his actions set in. Laura faced a similar fate, her once vibrant presence now a shadow, tainted by the choices she had made. As I watched from a distance, the consequences of my revenge unfolding, a bitter truth settled in my heart. The destruction of their social lives, the isolation they faced, it didn't bring me peace. Instead, it served as a constant reminder of the betrayal, a wound that refused to heal. In the quiet moments, when the noise of the world faded into the background, I was forced to confront the scars that the betrayal had left on my soul. Trust, once given so freely, now felt like a luxury I could no longer afford. The walls I had built around my heart were higher, stronger, a fortress to protect me from the pain of betrayal. The journey from love to betrayal, from betrayal to revenge, had brought me to this place, a place of reflection, where the cost of my actions lay bare before me. Despite the successful revenge, satisfaction remained an elusive shadow, a reminder that some wounds ran too deep to be healed by retribution alone. In the end, the downfall of Ethan and Laura was not a story of victory. It was a tale of loss, a cautionary reminder of the fragility of trust and the price of vengeance. As I moved forward, the lessons of this chapter etched deep in my heart. I knew the road to healing would be long and uncertain. But it was a road I was ready to walk, one step at a time, in search of a peace that revenge could never bring. The morning light crept through the curtains, casting a soft glow across the room, illuminating a new chapter in my life. The past few months had been a whirlwind of emotions, a tumultuous journey through betrayal, pain, and ultimately, growth. As I sat at my desk, surrounded by textbooks and notes, I couldn't help but reflect on how far I'd come. My studies and part-time job had become my sanctuary, a place where I could lose myself in routine and responsibility, away from the chaos that had once consumed my life. Each day was a step forward, a testament to my resilience. I had learned to guard my heart, to see the red flags I had once so naively ignored. It was a cautious stance, one where I was constantly aware of the shadows of my past. Ethan's attempts to reach out had been a steady background noise, a reminder of the life I had left behind. His messages, filled with regret and pleas for forgiveness, went unanswered. It wasn't out of spite, but rather a necessary step towards healing. I had moved on, leaving him to grapple with the consequences of his actions. It was a chapter closed, a lesson learned. Lara's fate was a mirror to the consequences of betrayal. The vibrant, carefree friend I once knew had become a shadow of her former self, isolated by the very actions she thought she could hide. The backlash was swift, a social exile that left her grappling with guilt and loneliness. It pained me to see her fall so far, but it was a path she had chosen, a stark reminder of the fragile nature of trust. Despite the scars, the pain had carved a path to new beginnings. My world, once so narrowly focused on Ethan and Laura, had gradually expanded, welcoming new faces, new friendships. It was a cautious process, each new connection forged with a wisdom born from betrayal. Trust was no longer given freely, it was earned, a precious commodity that I guarded with vigilance. The final lesson, the silver lining in the stormy clouds of my past, was a profound understanding of my worth. Betrayal, while a bitter pill to swallow, had taught me the value of self-respect, the importance of setting boundaries, and the necessity of walking away from those who no longer served my best interests. It was a painful journey, but one that had ultimately led me to a place of strength and empowerment. As I turned my attention back to my studies, the noise of the world outside fading into a distant hum, I realized that the betrayal, though a defining moment, was no longer the anchor it had once been. It was a part of my story, but not the entirety of it. I had emerged from the darkness, not unscathed, but stronger, wiser, and more resilient. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with its own challenges and triumphs, but I faced it with a newfound confidence. The lessons of the past, while hard-earned, had equipped me with the tools to navigate the complexities of life with grace and determination. Betrayal had broken me, but in its wake, I had discovered an unshakable sense of self, a compass by which to steer my future. And so, with a deep breath, I embraced the day, ready for whatever lay ahead, secure in the knowledge that I was no longer the person I had once been. I was stronger, wiser, and infinitely more capable of facing the world on my own terms. The final lesson had been learned, and with it, a new chapter had begun. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible tales of revenge. Don't forget to leave a comment below about what you would do in this situation. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I'm thrilled to have you here for another captivating tale that will tug at your heartstrings and keep you on the edge of your seat. Today's story is one of love, betrayal, and the quest for self-discovery. It's titled "I Tested My Girlfriend to See If She Loved Me for My Money, and It Backfired Horribly." Al looked at Tori, who deftly took the roll with the stick and put it in her mouth. She acted as if she had been going to restaurants since childhood, although she lived in a small apartment and worked as an accountant. Tori looked great. It seems that she has rich parents who constantly pamper their daughter, and she doesn't get out of the spa. The girl licked her lips and smiled at him. Al met Tori at the gym. He came to run on the treadmill, and Tori was engaged in walking. A conversation began between them. She turned out to be a very interesting and quick-witted girl, so the young man's head quickly went around. Al was fascinated by her sincerity and spontaneity. But then, relatives and friends began to give advice to the guy. Al's mother said that he chose a girl for himself from the category of those who only need money from a man. His mother reproachfully expressed, his father supported her with a displeased expression on his face. Al tried to think differently. He was fine with Tori. He didn't believe that she was a windy girl or a liar. But those around him stubbornly imposed a completely different opinion on him. Therefore, condemnation settled in his soul like a heavy stone, no matter how much he wanted to get rid of them. But Al increasingly began to notice the fact that he began to treat Tori differently than before. He constantly tried to find a catch in her behavior. He wanted to understand if she was really interested in him, or if she only needed his money. And one day, he decided to talk to Andrew, his good old buddy, about Tori and his parents' relationship with her. Andrew said, "Tori is a 100% hunter for wealth. Don't you yourself understand this? Do you think she earns money as an accountant for all this beauty?" Al swallowed hard. Do all girls look beautiful only thanks to beauty salons? If a girl is well-groomed, then she is necessarily a hunter for wealth? He had many thoughts in his head, and each thought gave birth to a new doubt inside. Andrew spoke with a sly smile. "And you check her out. Give her some expensive jewelry. If she agrees and accepts the gift, then she is definitely the same hunter." Al decided to try. Before that, he gave Tori only flowers and invited her on a date. And now he decided to buy her a gold chain with an emerald pendant, which would perfectly match the color of her eyes. When he presented the gift, Tori didn't refuse. She calmly accepted the chain and said that she had not been given such expensive gifts before, and she was very pleased. Al didn't understand anything at all. How should he perceive her behavior now? She's actually a hunter for wealth. Or an honest adult who doesn't want to waste her time needlessly rejecting gifts and bickering, just because pretty much everyone does it out of sheer shyness. He had even more questions, and Al didn't know how to find out exactly what Tori wanted. The man was embarrassed to directly invite her to draw up a marriage contract. He believed that he should share everything with his wife, at least in half. If not, give her everything, because she would support him and keep the house comfortable, because she would bear him children in the future, because she simply exists and that she chose him, although there are a lot of men around. His father sat at a family dinner noticing his son's condition. Al didn't quite understand him. What? His father advised. Pretend to be bankrupt. It's simple. Tell her you've lost everything, and live for a few days in a rented apartment. Take public transport and see if your beauty girl stays with you or runs away from you. Al liked his father's proposal. The thought was actually correct. This way, he would be able to make sure that Tori loves him. Otherwise, he didn't want to think about another scenario, but at least he would not make the most serious mistake in his life if the girl disappeared. He would not marry the girl who needed only his finances. And now, as they sat in the Japanese restaurant, Al looked at Tori and prepared to tell her the lies he'd come up with overnight. But his tongue didn't want to turn. Al started. Tori, something happened to me. And he paused, noticing her worried look. This is probably the last time we have dinner at a restaurant. Tori was surprised. Why? You say that like you want to leave me. Al said with difficulty. No, they blocked all my accounts. Here's what's left of my cash. My apartment was also sealed, and my business is on the verge of bankruptcy. A bunch of checks from the tax and other nonsense. I'm not sure that I can afford all this, even if I return to work as a simple financer. Tori forced a smile and lowered her head. At that moment, something inside Al broke off. It seemed to him that he said goodbye to the woman whom he considered the best in the world. Tori didn't say anything else. And when Al saw her off, she just kissed him sparingly on the cheek and left. It's been 3 days, and Tori hasn't called him or even texted him. Al wanted to dial her number, but didn't dare. She made a decision and chose not him. So she didn't really love him. The man played this thought over and over in his head. However, 6 months of a happy relationship couldn't just disappear from his thoughts. They left an indelible mark. Al wanted to talk to the girl and sort out the situation. He even considered telling her that he lied about his financial situation. But then, Tori would have returned to him solely because of the money. Such a relationship would clearly have lost its passion and sincerity. Al began to frequent the cafe that he and Tori often went to when they were walking along the promenade together. He bought himself a coffee, sat down at a table and looked out the window. In his mind, he returned to the moments when they wandered along the shore holding hands. He remembered her smile, jokes, stories about work, and his soul became very heavy. Tori strongly sunk into the soul of a man, and she didn't want to leave from there. The rings of bells on the cafe door brought the man back to reality. Al glanced towards the entrance and froze. Tori entered the cafe. She smiled with some sadness, as if she didn't expect to see him and was not glad to meet him. But she sat down at Al's table anyway and greeted him. The man remarked, "Hi Tori." He had no idea what they could talk about. Only a week and a half had passed, and his soul went to his heels as soon as he saw her. And in that second, he was ready to confess everything and ask her to come back because he missed her. He went crazy without her. The girl started first. How are you doing? I see that everything is fine with your business. I recently saw your interview on TV. Al opened his mouth, but closed it because the waiter came and he could at least gather his thoughts a little to properly express what was on his soul. Tori ordered ice cream and coffee with cream and the waiter left. Al looked at the girl. It was hard for him to even breathe, being next to her and realizing that she couldn't belong to him and that all her love was feigned. And now she approached him, most likely because she saw his interview on TV. Tori, I have to tell you something. Al hesitated to reveal his lies, although he wanted to tell her that she had failed the test. She whispered, "Speak." Al said and lowered his head. There was no bankruptcy. He had no idea where this conversation would lead, but he had to open his soul and tell her that she broke his heart and maybe he would feel better. You decided to test me. I knew about it from the very beginning, even when you started talking to me then. Why do you think I decided to disappear from your life? Al's eyes went wide. He felt restless in his soul, as if he had been circled around his finger or were trying to do it now. Then why didn't you say it right away? Tori pursed her lips, turned to look out the window and said, Did I have to tell you something? Almost from the very beginning, I felt distrust on your part. When we first met, I felt so warm and good with you. I was sure that I had found the very man I could rely on, whom I could trust, and that it would be mutual. But it didn't last long. After meeting your parents, I felt pressured. It hasn't let go of me for a second since that day. You started acting like you were eyeing me, like you wanted to catch me red-handed, like some kind of thief. And after meeting your friends, you began to find fault with me for all sorts of trifles. Al, do you think I didn't see the face you gave me that pendant with? Tori touched her fingers to the chain that hung around her neck, and then she unfastened the clasp. She took off the chain with the pendant and placed it in front of the man. You were waiting for me to start reacting like those naive girls who are waiting for such a gift. But when they receive it, they begin to pretend that it's so unexpected. You and I are both adults. Why did you have to arrange this test for me? Why didn't you trust me? Why do you doubt me? Didn't you feel my sincerity and love? Al had nothing to say. His temples throbbed and all the words were scattered in different directions. There was a void in his head. That's why Tori looked at him with such sadness then. She knew everything. She felt. And she didn't want to talk because she was in pain. The waiter brought Tori's order. She drank coffee and started eating ice cream, and Al didn't know what to say to her. He just sat, looked at the chain she took off her neck, and was silent, realizing that he himself had broken his love. If you gave me a second chance, I would fix everything. That's the only thing Al could say. Why would you need a second chance? Tori took the money out of her purse and put it on the table. She rose to her feet and looked at the man. You are too dependent on someone else's opinion, and I need a reliable person who will love me and trust me even if everyone around is against me. Unfortunately, people don't change at the snap of their fingers, and I don't believe that this will not happen again. Sorry, I have to run. I was glad to meet you, but that's all, and please don't try to find me, and better. Tori thought for a moment, sighed heavily, and added, Don't try to bring me back, but reconsider your behavior and attitude to life. You can't be led by someone else's opinion all your life. Tori is gone. It was hard for her to be around Al, but she understood that his test and distrust would not allow them to be truly happy. She couldn't stay near him, and he just sat, looked after her, and couldn't move, because he actually screwed everything up and let go of the person who could replace the whole world for him. If you enjoyed this story, please Please show your support by hitting the like button. Your engagement means the world to me and helps keep the stories coming. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss out on future tales filled with unexpected twists and turns. Subscribing not only keeps you in the loop but also supports me in my quest to bring you more captivating stories. So, take a moment to like and subscribe. Thank you again for your support and stay tuned for more incredible journeys. Until next time, keep believing in the power of stories to transform and